Hello, this is the Creative Download hosted by Christy Bruno and Chelsea Nettleton. Created by creatives to inspire and encourage others to live in the fullness of their creativity. Hi, Chelsea.
Hey, Christy, how's it going?
It's good. Good, good, good. How
Good.
is your week been? Tell me what's going on. Or tell me first, tell us if you haven't been here on our podcast, let's introduce ourselves first. Do you want to go first?
Sure, that sounds good. I'm Chelsea Nettleton. I am a singer-songwriter, photographer, videographer, hopefully novelist someday, and budding music producer, and many, many other things. Lover of dogs.
Yes.
I always like to try and add in another thing that it's like,
And
ooh, this is also a part of me. What
yes, so I love
about
that.
you?
Lover of dogs.
Oh, I
I'm
love
Christy
them.
Bruno. I'm also a singer-songwriter, storyteller, writer, budding TV series, creator, writer, and dancer, love dance, naturist. I've been told I'm a pantheist. I believe life is in everything and the
Yeah.
energy is in everything. And we are the Creative Download podcast, and we've been talking a lot about living a full creative life.
Yeah.
And this week, I know you released a song, Chelsea, right? With your
Did, yeah.
what are you working on? Tell us about your song.
So yeah, we Pete with Circle of Thirds, we released another song, which feels good to get a second one out there. It's called Out Alive. Oddly enough, it's actually the first song he and I started working on together a little over a year ago. And then we first, for whatever reason at that time, felt like we were wanting to work on something else. So we just kind of set it aside on the back burner, worked on some other things, and then realized we wanted to go back and work on that one, and it came to life and came together. So
Nice.
um yeah, so it's it's
Beautiful.
not a downer of a song, but it's not a happy like feel good. It's got hope though. So, and it's got, this is the one I was telling you guys, it has a real cellist in it. It's not us,
Yes.
doing
Oh, I was
MIDI.
going to ask you that. That's right. This is
Yeah,
the one. I loved that.
this is
Love
the
that.
one. Yeah. And she, yeah, so we hired her. She's in New York and she was able to get some studio time. So that was really fun.
Oh, so
Pete
cool.
orchestrated all of that. So yeah, it feels really good. And it's, I pull a lot of the lyrics and stuff from my life, and hard times that I've gone through and whatnot, but also, making it out to the other side, making it out alive. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm really proud of Pete. He put together like a lyric video, just to
Yes.
have something to put on YouTube and social and stuff. And I thought he did a really good job. I was really proud of him. So
Yeah, no, it was great. I watched it all. I listened to the song. Is right up
yeah,
my alley. I love that.
yay,
The whole idea of it's funny, the song's similar to one I'm releasing this week too, in a lot of ways.
yeah,
Getting out alive, like being, when you're in one spot, and we can be in really dark spots in
hmm,
our life and no one knows.
yeah, oh yeah,
We can walk around pretending like we're fine, and
right,
then but not know how hard something can be in our life.
hmm,
Reflect on that. I love it's a reflection song. I loved it.
big time, yeah.
You sing it
Thank
so
you.
beautifully. I really did think it came along great. And I actually, when I listened to it, thought, oh, this is a sync friendly song.
I was hoping the same thing. It kind
Yeah.
of feels like it. Um, it's interesting. I will be curious, and I won't say what it is because I want people to listen to it with an open mind. But there's one artistic choice that we made, um, that I would just be curious
Mhm.
what people think. And some people I think are going to like it, and other people might not like it. And so I'll leave it kind of there. But um, it's just interesting to see, like, I mean, a piece of art is a piece of art until you give it away. I mean, it's constantly changing and being
Yeah.
so that was a really fun experience. But
Yeah. No,
and
we can't control how people interpret our art, right? Our songs. So it's like it'll be that kind of a song. That's why I feel like it's so sync friendly too, in the sense that and sync means, if you're listening and you've never heard what sync is
right,
licensing into television and film. That would go along so well with a scene of someone coming out on the other side, getting out alive, you know?
right. It wasn't an easy journey by any means. There's bruises, there's scars,
Yeah.
I like to call them battle wounds. When I was a gymnast and a diver, anytime we, hit the board for diving, or if you fall off the balance beam and scrape something or whatever, we call them battle wounds
Yeah.
because that's just what it was, and so now it's like those were visible scars and bruises and, battle wounds. And then life has, the invisible ones, sometimes visible too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
No,
it's all about that. So yeah, and I think it's so funny that, like, I mean, we knew we both had a song coming out around the same time, and yet again, we're still like in kind of in sync with things.
yeah.
It's so fun.
Yes.
So tell
Yeah.
us about your song.
Well, the song title is My Own Life, and I wrote it with my songwriting team. We have a name now for our songwriting team called 2 a.m. Epiphanies, which is really exciting. I don't know if I've
Love that.
mentioned that here yet, but Lori Clark Gilbert, she's our songwriting lyricist. She
Mhm.
gets these downloads at two
Nice.
o'clock in the morning. She gets like, oh, that's the line for the song, or whatever. So she came and said, I think we should be called the 2 a.m. Epiphanies because a
I
lot of
love it.
that happens you know, when you're not thinking about the song. And so that's our
Right.
name of the writing team. And it's George Slavic, myself, and Lori Clark Gilbert. And then we decided I'd release it as an artist. I haven't released a song since 2011. So this is
Yeah.
like a completely new world for me to like do. So I've been all week really working on getting everything ready. My website new, I had to do new photos, all of the stuff for an artist, right? That's not
Hmm.
just the songwriting. And in
Right.
particular, this song, which was, I feel like it's a really special song for me and the three of us. We were teamed up by Judy Stakey and Mike Myers when we did a songwriting intensive with them.
Hmm.
And it's a Nashville style of writing where you have the top liner, which that's my role to do the melody. You have a musician and you have a lyricist,
Hmm.
and you work as a 3 unit team. And Judy always talks about that being like the best team she sees working together in her
Nice.
life with working with songwriters. And so that was really it was actually the first assignment they gave us.
Yeah.
And so this is the first song we wrote together. And then we've taken it through. I just listened to like the first draft,
Oh, nice.
like before and it was like, oh my gosh, the lyrics were a little different, and everything. So by the time we hear a song, by the time you hear My Own Life, the one that we have produced, a full production, it is so different than the raw beginning skeleton of the song that started in our workshop. And so
Right.
we kind of, over this last, like we've had the song for a while, we've been kind of putting it aside, like, okay, whatever, we won't do that one. We'll just keep
Yeah.
writing. And then we kept coming back to it. And I think it's more the content of the song, which I think will play into a little bit of our talk today too.
Yeah.
But that is being true to who you are,
Yeah.
like you're having your own life, right? And so it was interesting too this week for me in doing this because there was a moment where like I wasn't actually being true to myself
Mm.
in even the promote, like not true, like who I was. Like I had some photos done by a very good friend photographer, and they're great.
Yeah.
They weren't who I am right now with this song, and I
Sure.
didn't even realize it. And I wanted to just, it was like, oh my gosh, I can so easily slip into, this is maybe what everybody wants to see,
Yeah.
this is what everybody really might want to hear. And that is the purpose of the song My Own Life, is to
Yeah.
do what's our own path, right? Which we're going to talk about. Like
I'm so excited. Yeah.
we're going to talk about today is like that space. Like this is our song
Yeah.
that we really dug into, knowing people who've just signed up to do whatever they were supposed to do in life,
Right.
and
Right.
then not being happy,
Mm-hmm.
waiting for
So
something, and
true.
then that. So it was a really, like, so much went into actually these lyrics and getting this song
Yeah.
to where it is. And it was what we learned how to write together. It was our song. How do we write
So
together?
cool.
Now we've
Yeah.
got other songs coming, but this one is
Yeah.
really exciting for me. Yeah.
I love that. That's fantastic. Yeah, and I'm excited for it to come out. I mean, I've gotten the behind the scenes sneak listen of it and I love it. So
And it's vibey, it's
beautiful.
chill, it's mellow,
It
it's
is.
also introspective and
Yep.
reflective. It's, but it's also
But it's
empowering.
relatable. Yeah, it's empowering, it's relatable. It's not so vague that it's, too generic, but it also allows you, like, people that, maybe it's not their exact story, to still be able to gain and pull from it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm excited to see, the response from it, and
Yeah,
once that
me
comes
too.
out.
Well, and we have to let that go. So we're in that process
Right.
process of letting that go. And
Right.
it's the releasing songs, and I love this about art because it doesn't matter if it's a song, if it's a piece of art, it's really important to share because
Yep.
it's not all for us.
Right.
It is then for others. And I've talked about this before. I have friends that go on my Spotify, or people that find me on Spotify, or find out I'm a songwriter, and they'll go on and they'll message me and they'll be like, I really needed to hear that song.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, that's what
Yeah.
it's for, and I really needed to hear that,
Yeah.
and I don't know why. It's just the what happens, if
Right.
somebody listens to it. So
Right.
it's good. We're on a great path doing that. So
Yeah.
off our topic for today. So I'm super excited about it, as always.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll jump into and we were just talking about this before we got started, that we again really want to be authentic and honest and vulnerable, and so in
Yeah.
the spirit of that, we really weren't sure what this episode was going to be about, because we're kind of in between, not necessarily in between topics per se, I guess, because creativity as a whole, like, but we're kind of in between books. We it's not that we're done necessarily with the war of art, because that will constantly be coming up. Ooh, I had a fun remind me I have just a fun little snippet that was kind of cool about that book. But so we were thinking about it, and it all of a sudden it just kind of, again, we without, I think, even realizing it, we asked the universe, like, or we asked, the creator, like, what should we talk about, this episode? And sure enough, a topic came. And so today, and probably a couple episodes more, or throughout, today's topic, we're going to talk about curiosity. I thought of a potentially fun, like, title for the episode: Curiosity Doesn't Always Kill the Cat.
My God, I'm so glad you said that because I heard that. My grandmother used to always say that to me.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
curiosity killed the cat. I was a very curious child, and
Yeah.
so I was told that a lot.
Yeah, curiosity, for whatever reason, same thing with quote unquote making a mistake or failing at something.
Yes.
Curiosity's kind of had like a negative connotation in a lot of ways, or more of a, oh well, you only do that when you're a kid and you're wandering around and exploring, but then it's like you grow out of it, and you're no longer curious as you get older, and it's like, no. That's
No, and I was just telling I actually told my son, who's 19, and my husband, like, what our topic was going to be. And they both were like, that's a great topic.
yeah.
And I, as I was talking to them, I'm like, yeah, one of the reasons I quit teaching, I mean, I've talked about this before about creativity, was that we've really gotten away in our education, with young people, on being curious.
Yes.
And we were talking about how, that if you read a lot of the current inventors, big tech, a lot of them didn't continue college because
Yeah.
they were curious, right? They were
Yeah.
curious on how to make something happen with computers and all of the world that we live in today, which sometimes can feel very scary, but it
Right.
is our new world of evolution, right? That we
Right.
have to learn how to manage. So
Right.
a lot have left because what happens in education, higher education too, is like they just hand you, like, here are all the classes you have to take to get your degree,
Hmm.
as opposed to, like, what are you I mean, I would say there's probably some colleges that don't all do this, so I'm speaking very generally, but like, that if you're curious about something and college isn't meeting it for you,
Hmm.
then don't go to college.
Right. There's
Go
nothing
be
wrong with that.
curious and find your path. It's like,
Yeah.
so I kind of like was surprised when I was talking to them how much I was like, oh, well, we've kind of killed curiosity in
Yeah.
education. We don't
Yeah.
have that curious thinking. And then we started talking about our friends in Canada.
Yeah. I
So
want to
I
meet these
talk about
people
them a
so
lot
bad.
because they're like the most creative family we know. They live creatively all the time. Their
Love that.
world is creative. And my son said, I love the way they think. And I'm
Yeah.
because they're creative thinkers and they're
Yeah.
curious.
Yeah.
Um, and one of the oldest son, his name's John Truly. He's a DJ. It lives in Vancouver. No, I think he's in Vancouver, Victoria. He's in Victoria now. He said to us when Julian had just graduated high school and Julian wasn't sure he wanted to go to college, and we're like, you don't have to. Like figure
Mm-hmm.
out who you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are you curious? Like, I love that line. What are you curious about?
What are you curious about?
And he said, well, yeah, why would you want to go to college if you haven't discovered who you are yet? I mean, that is a brilliant line coming from a 25-year-old.
Yep.
And he's loving his life and they live
Yeah.
very creatively. And so they're like our goal. And then, of course, we just planned our trip back to Canada because we want to go see them. They're not coming here right now. We're too much of a mess here in the States.
I don't blame them.
So we're going to see them
Nice.
and do some creative things with them, you know, and
Oh, jealous.
so curiosity. I mean, let's introduce the book that we're going to start reading.
Yeah.
It'll probably be 2 episodes, we thought, right? We'll
Yeah, and I think we're gonna try and find a good stopping point
yeah,
instead of breaking the episode. But you guys know us by now. We're not sure. We'll see where it goes.
yeah.
But yeah, so we were talking about kind of the next book that because one of the things that Christy and I really want to focus on is constantly learning, constantly growing, partly for ourselves and
Yep.
partly so that we can help encourage you guys, hey, here's a book that may help some of you and some of you not. So one of the things we're going to be doing often is reading a lot, or listening to podcasts, and talking about those things. And it was exciting. We love the War of Art. Which okay, so let me give you
Yeah, I
my
was gonna
my
say, tell us
short
about
little
it.
story.
Yeah,
It was just fun. Because as an artist, sometimes you feel like you're alone, or like
yeah,
I don't feel alone when you and I are talking. It's like, oh
yeah,
yay, I'm with my community, or we're like with my friends who are artists. I don't, but otherwise it's like otherwise you kind of feel like you're walking around like, oh, I'm the only one that sees things this way. I'm really passionate about this, or oh, I walked into so my husband and I are both actually getting new tattoos. Very excited about it, and they're very meaningful for us. I mean, obviously, as most tattoos are for people. So we're in the tattoo shop. He's getting that she was starting on the line work for him, and the owner was in there getting ready for his client coming in, and he has a steel guitar up on his wall, and I was like, oh, like that's awesome. You play guitar, and he's like, yeah. He's like, I'm not great at it, but I like it. I enjoy it. So that then led into music, which then led into the podcast and creativity. And he's like, have you ever read anything by Steven Pressfield? And I was like, oh my God, The War of Art. Yes, I
okay,
have. And he was like genuinely shocked that I'd read
okay, yeah,
anything by him. He hasn't read The War of Art. He's read Do the Work,
okay,
which I'm gonna order. I think I did order it this morning because I
yeah,
do want to see what that's like. So it's just a fun little thing. I'm like, and it dawned on me, I was like, oh my gosh, like how cool would that be? We've talked about eventually having, people on here. We want to interview all different kinds of artists. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we need to interview him, and potentially the gal that's doing our art, like if they're up for it,
yeah.
tattoo artists. Like, anyways, so it's just a fun little moment of the universe going, see,
I love that.
you're
It's
not
called
alone.
synchronicity.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. You get little nudges that
Uh-huh.
tells you that yes, what you're doing is
Uh-huh.
what you're supposed to be doing. And it's
Yes.
like you know it when I love talking about our podcast with
Yeah.
people. I love it. I talk to people about it a lot when they ask me, what are we doing? Oh my God, I started this podcast. Like it's so
Yeah.
like intuitive. We just intuitively did it. And anything intuitive like that, I feel like is the universe like going, go do this. And then we go,
Right.
okay, we're gonna do it, you
We're
know?
gonna do it. And we
And
do it.
a lot of times the universe will say, okay, go do this. And I'll be like, what? I don't know. I'm over here,
Yeah.
This time we said, yes, let's do it.
We're
And
like, we just gotta go. We'll do it.
yeah, and when you speak like that, and you know that it's like almost like this energetic thing. Like people really get excited about it. I talk about it a lot, and I know
Yeah.
that I have. Thank you to everybody who's listening.
Yes.
I
Thank you
know a
guys
lot
so
of the people
much.
I've talked about it now have downloaded and they are listening to it. And it's not so much about how many downloads you get. It really isn't for me on this.
Right.
It
Yeah.
really is about, for me, is talking about creativity with people and with our podcast. I think is where we bring peace to the world, where we
Yep.
bring, because we know there's
Yep.
evidence now that when there is more creativity in the world going on,
Yep.
there's less violence.
Yep.
And so I think I would rather do this than like protest or do anything like that, is just
Right.
do our creativity,
Do our
talk about
creativity.
how it's helping us
Yeah.
be who we really are.
Yeah. Yeah. And on that note, so then, yeah, that was just a fun little, I was like, I had to tell you that. And I
Love
was like,
that.
oh, I should just mention that on the podcast because it's
Yes.
just fun.
Glad you did.
So the book and this talk about the universe sending a, like talking about God or, universe, whatever it is for you. But like for me, it was God sending me a clear sign of where to go next.
Yep.
The book that we're going to be doing is called Find Your Unicorn Space, by Eve Rodskey, I think is how you pronounce her last name. So
Which
the
again, this book is so popular because like my book, I tried to order it at our local bookstore. I
yeah,
always talk about how I like our local bookstore. And it's on back order till like July or
which
something.
is
So,
crazy.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a
Um,
popular book as well.
which I had no idea because I'd never heard of it. And it's so funny again, because the way that I found out about the book was through my friends that I hang out with a lot.
Yeah.
Eve actually came to speak at the company where he works. And he works from home, but I think he's on a Zoom. And so she spoke, and what she was talking about, he was like, "Oh, I think Chelsea would like this book." And he wasn't even thinking necessarily for the podcast. He was just like, "Oh, I know she's thinking about these kinds of things, with creativity." And it probably was in the back of his mind, like for the podcast. Um, and so he let me borrow his copy. He ordered one of her book. And like 10 pages into it, I was like, I'm ordering my own because I need to mark this up and put
Yes.
sticky notes in here and all that stuff. And the cool thing is, we had no idea this book existed back when we started our podcast, but this almost literally sums up
Mm-hmm.
what our podcast is about. So, Eve, if you ever listen to this,
Yeah.
and maybe by the time you listen to this, you will have already met and talked, because we would love to have you on as a guest, and maybe a consistent guest
Wouldn't that be
for our show.
amazing?
Oh, it'd be
Yes.
so cool,
Mhm.
because we're all in alignment, for the importance of creativity.
Yes.
Um, so for today, we're actually going to jump ahead to about middle of the book, where she starts talking about curiosity. Because again, like kind of like War of Art, she breaks things into a couple different, big chunks of the book.
She knows how
And
to get to us creative people. You got to
yes,
keep it short. If it's dense, keep it short so we can take it in a little bit at a time.
exactly. Yeah, because it does seem like a lot of us artists too are ADD or deal with some symptoms like, with it. So we need it, bite size,
Bite
which is
size.
great.
Yeah.
And the I will say this too, the book kind of focuses, she focuses on women a lot. She doesn't it's not exclusively for women. Her main focus of this book, though, or a good part of it, at least the first part, is helping and encouraging other women to not let yourself be put into the background
Mm.
because you're a mother, or whatever. Like, why is it okay for your husband or your spouse to go, you know play golf for 4 hours while you watch the kids, but yet you can't have 4 hours to go do something for you? And men, please hear me, like, that is not a dig at you guys. I'm talking from a societal
Yes.
standpoint. It's
Well,
just a cultural thing, especially here in America. It just
well, I
is.
can even speak to that because
Yeah.
I went through
Yeah.
that with Julian when we had Julian.
Yeah.
So, I was very independent. I spent my 20s like basically moving to San Diego, building my own life, getting my college degree, starting music. I was like performing. I was doing, and I met my husband,
Mhm.
and I've talked about him a little bit, but like he's a born and raised, in La Jolla, surfer, started his own sunscreen company for his brother, which we had, I think, on our first or on
Mhm.
like second episode.
Mhm.
And we're business partners now in real estate. But you know, we didn't know when we had our son how much that society expectation was embedded into us.
Yes.
And we believe in our family that a therapist is just like going to the dentist, that,
Yes.
so we had a therapist, And it really was a struggle. I really did feel like I had a lot of fear that I was going to be pushed into the shadows and not be able to do what I wanted to do and do
Yeah.
music and um and it was hard. And I did make some choices early
Hmm.
to not do music the way music was expected to be done.
Yeah.
And so I just kept writing and doing music that way as opposed to performing. But I remember our therapist saying to us, because we had some issues like what you're talking about, like, well, why is he can't go to golf 5 hours because he was
Right.
a golfer.
Yeah.
I have a life too that I need to do too. So it was like we had to learn how to, and we're Gen X, right? So we were
Hmm.
coming from my grandparents lived very patriarchal. He was a breadwinner. She took care of the kids in the house. Like there were very defined roles. My
Yeah.
parents weren't so much like that. They both worked full time. My dad always cooked dinner. So there was like, I didn't see grow up so much in that, but it was still with me. And I
Right.
heard our therapist at the time, he was in his late 70s, and he said, you're the first generation to really as a generation where the men are also taking on the characteristics, the caretaker um, roles at times. He's like,
Hmm.
my generation never would do that.
Yeah.
As a generation, there probably were individual dads that did,
Right. Right. But as a whole,
but as a whole,
yeah.
and it's one of the things right now that really drives me crazy. And I don't like to talk politics on this, but when people want to talk about making it so that women aren't going to have that freedom, where there's people who believe we should go back to when it
Hmm.
was great. Well, when it was great for what? For
Yeah.
who? For
Yeah.
you?
Well, yeah.
Where women didn't have the ability to even speak up if somebody was, oppressing them, I mean, so I appreciate that she brings that up because as a creative person,
Hmm.
it's really important. And what I did as a mom, a lot of times is creating with Julian.
Hmm. Which I
I
love. I
just
think
did it
that's
with
so sweet.
him. We did a lot of
Yeah.
painting
Yeah.
and we would paint stuff or we would do sing stuff or we would do stuff. We did drumming at the World Beat Center in San Diego. Like we would just go do all
Fun.
kinds of stuff. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of with the first part of it. And since I don't have kids of my own. I have stepkids, but they're older when I came into
Yeah.
the picture. Um I don't relate to the caretaker part of it, but not like from a kid standpoint, but I can recall times when my husband and I there was a lot of bitterness there for me with feeling like I'm working full time and you still expect me, or this is what I was feeling and I wasn't expressing it, was I'm still supposed to clean the house and make dinner. Like we're both working full time and yet I'm the caretaker for these things. So we've had to have,
Ah,
chats about those kinds of things. So the reason she encourages that is because the like women are one of the areas where, or one of the people groups that get oppressed from that standpoint of like you it's hard to find time to express yourself and to do your creativity. So that's one of the things she's really passionate about. So through all of that, she started realizing the need for this, and so that's kind of where the book starts. I think what I was saying was basically like, men, don't hear me wrong, like, or hear us wrong. We're not opposed to you guys in any way. um
well,
like, we want the guys in our life and the men of this world, whoever of you are listening to this podcast, like, please still be encouraged by this. We're not dogging on men. It's just from a societal standpoint, women have just had a harder time being allowed to have the time. And again, there's a weird word there, allowed to
yeah.
have the time to do our art or whatever.
Well, the messaging in
Yes.
society, the
Yes.
messaging is that you're being selfish.
Yes.
The message
That's
is
what she
that if
talks
you
about.
take time for yourself
Yeah.
to do your art creativity. I remember when I started going back to dance when I
Hmm.
had Julie after like having Julian and had felt so guilty. I was like, where is this guilt coming from?
Right.
And it was like not even mine. It was like kind of just like passed on. And I remember even the women in my family who had had kids who were older than me, they were like jealous of the fact that I'm like taking the time to go take care of myself and
Right.
feed that part of myself. So I did find different ways to do it. Like I did a lot of dance classes,
Mm-hmm.
cardio hip hop classes and stuff that feeds my soul. And I will tell you what, my husband would tell you to this day, I am so much happier when I have creativity in my life. He wants me happy. I am so much more pleasant to be with. Back
Right.
like back to our whatever episode where we talked with when you're not in your creativity, what comes out? Rage,
Rage.
frustration, anger. So
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't want that for me. So he was
Right.
really like kind of like, don't listen to them, go to dance. Like, so
Right.
it was also not necessarily my husband that was doing that. It was the other
Right.
women in my family that were older
Yeah.
who did not feel they could do that, in
Right.
their generation to tell
Yeah.
their husbands, here, watch the kid. I'm going to go dance or I'm going to go take a class. My
Yep.
mom did, I have to say, she did try doing some of that. And it was hard for me. I remember because my dad was
Mm,
checked out, right? So
right.
she'd want to do piano or she sewed and she did cake decorating and she'd go do stuff. And I'd be like, well, what am I? I didn't
Yeah.
have a dad there to take care of me. So for the men, it's important to step up and like have your time with
Mm-hmm.
your kids so your
Mm-hmm.
wife can go and do their creativity.
Or if you don't have kids, take
Yeah.
care, like don't look at it as you're taking on stuff for your wife.
Yeah. Do
You're
your
not
part of
helping
the
her, you're taking care of your household. You
household as a whole. Yes.
Yeah, and so that's a big thing that she's passionate about, that Eve. And so then when she basically is kind of helping to help, trying to help with that communication, and then once she kind of moves past that, the next part of the book gets into the creativity, and finding who you are as an artist and things like that. And so again, in the uh in not in light of, oh gosh, my I can't, words are hard today. um because of the desire to be vulnerable and transparent, when I started reading this, I think it's chapter 7, about curiosity, for me, I was like, dang, I was like, I like to think of myself as quote unquote an established artist, not a newbie, and again, nothing wrong with that, but I like to think that, oh, well, I've been doing music for a long time and I've been writing and I've had my master's degree in screenwriting and blah blah blah, and I've been doing photography and videography for, years. But there's still this big part of me, and this is where the authenticity and, transparency comes in, is I still don't know that I know what I really want to do. Like I'm not just passionate about sync, music for film and television, like we've talked about. I love it. And I would love to have something in film and television. I'm not sure though that that's the only thing that I want to do. And we've talked, I mean,
Yeah.
when we do our introductions, like obviously we're multifaceted.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm like, ooh, maybe I need to take a step back, because one of the things about curiosity is, again, because it's had such a negative connotation, I didn't realize like how much I'd kind of let go of being curious. So I'm like, you know what? Like, as I'm reading this part on curiosity, I'm like, I need to do this. I need to step back and go, when was the last time that I got curious? Instead of just assuming, okay, I love to sing, I love to write, therefore I'm a singer songwriter, performer, whatever. Or, I love photography and videography, therefore I do it for my, you know what I mean? So all that to say, let me get to the, yeah. So it says, the chapter 7 is identify a curiosity. Oh, and I think the reason I was saying that about the first part of the book is that's the first part of the book. So men, if please don't feel like you're being attacked.
Mm.
And honestly, maybe the first part of it isn't for you. Maybe you jump to,
Yeah. You don't have to
let's
read
see
the
if
whole
it's
book.
part 2, I think. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because honestly, I skipped the part about being a mom and like dealing with that part of thing, because I didn't have to really deal with that with my husband.
Yeah.
So part 3, so it's part 3 where she really starts getting into thing, and it's cultivate the 3 C's of creativity: curiosity, connection, and completion. And she just talks about which chapter those are in. So I'm in chapter 7, identify a curiosity. And when I skipped ahead and skipped the parts where it's like, okay, that doesn't really fit with me, I skipped this, and it was like the universe was like, right here, this is what you need to be reading right now. And one of the things, and this is the fun part Christy and I were talking about before we jumped on here. I was sharing with her, guess what exercise is in this chapter? If you recall, and if you haven't listened to this, I would tell you to go back and listen to some of the episodes. And I can't think of which episode it was at the moment,
I feel like it
but
was not the last one, but the one
maybe
before
the
that.
one
So
before.
it'll be
That
on.
sounds
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, if not that, like the two-parter, one of those parts. But the values exercise that you did, it's
Yes.
in this book. And
Yeah.
so it was so neat because you kind of introduced us to that. And some of you out there probably have heard of it already, but I really hadn't thought of it from from an artistic,
Yeah.
like from our who we are standpoint, if that makes any sense. Because even though it's, I guess I was thinking like values checklist. Oh, life as a whole. Who am I? Well, I'm an artist, so I need to be thinking about my values, from that standpoint, because that's who I am. And I showed Christy in the book, like there's, two pages on values. And it was like, oh my gosh. So
I think
kind of just
she
we
has
got to
you
put it
circle
together.
3, right? I think our exercise
Yes.
was
I think
circle
you talked about,
5.
yeah, you talked about five.
And actually, the exercise I did with Brita, a friend of mine, it was circle 10 and then eliminate 5.
Yeah.
And so then you're left with your 5. But she talks about in this book doing
Mhm.
3,
Yep.
which actually is probably, and when you're operating in your values,
Hmm.
I mean, it is really like, I'm going to go back just a little bit to what we talked about in
Yeah.
that last one, having the intention, because it starts with the intention.
Yep.
Like if you're intent, I have to do this a lot. Like, okay, what's my intention of going to this? You
Yeah.
Is this within the values that I'm in, or is this, like, um, or can I just be curious?
Right.
I'm really excited about the idea of being curious and adding that to my intention of what I'm doing. And Drew and I talked about it too. There's a great Ted Lasso scene.
Oh, we
Remember
just
which one
watched
it
it again.
is? Yeah, where he's like, it's a dart scene. I think it's in one of the first seasons. But he's saying
Oh,
like
yes.
about curiosity, right? Like be curious about other people.
Being curious.
Like be curious about life. Be
Hmm.
curious. I mean, when that word, I texted this to you. Ooh, it's such an expansive word.
Uh-huh.
With creativity, we need to have that kind of freedom. It's almost
Yeah.
like that loose, relaxed. I don't know, but I'm going to be curious.
Mhm.
It's like, let's go to this museum,
Yeah.
let be curious about what's here
Yeah.
and the people that are there. Or,
Yeah.
and I'm a little bit curious as person. I think we all are, but I'm a questioner. I'm
Yeah.
curious about a lot.
Yeah.
It almost annoys people, like, because I want to ask questions a lot.
Right.
So if you're not a natural curious person, I think it's probably like a great idea to just go, well, what am I curious about? Like
Yeah.
what like I'm curious about improv. I've
Right.
been curious about improv for a long time. Now I have
Right.
no idea what that would lead for, but I think when we're curious about something, back to what you were kind of saying, not knowing like really what am I? Like, what do I want to do this? Do I want to do this? Do I want to do this? When we step back and think, okay, I'm curious about sync,
Hmm.
getting stuff placed in sync
Hmm.
and what
Yeah.
that
And
would be
yeah.
like. You know,
Yeah.
I'm curious about how would it be to write our own TV series
Hmm.
and then also be able to help find the right music for it, like there's some curiosity that goes along. Oh, by the way, I saw The Materialist last night and great soundtrack.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so, anyways, but the soundtrack was like, oh my gosh, who did the music on all of this? But
Right.
see, I get excited about that. And one of the things I learned about myself these last 18 to 2 months to 2 years is that I've kind of been in the wrong lane with music for a long time.
Same.
I
Yes.
love writing songs and I love film and television.
Hmm.
And I didn't know that. And I can when we were thinking about this, I'm a self-reflector. I think we learn
Yes.
what so I would throw in, do some self-reflection. What were you trying out when you were younger?
Hmm.
Like, and I did acting.
Hmm.
But I didn't really want to be an actor.
Hmm.
I would find myself in I did these shows like Renegade. There were all these shows going on in San Diego when I moved here. And so I would go and be a part of the shows and get paid for the day as an extra. And sometimes I'd have like a little stunt thing that I'd do or whatever. But and all the people I was working with, they all wanted to go to LA and get on Baywatch. And I was like, that's not what I want to do. I wanted to write.
Mhm.
At that time, I couldn't tell you I wanted to write, but I was so drawn. I was so curious to going there.
Yes. Well, and what I found interesting about the values exercise, again, somehow not putting two and two together, that it's like, okay, me as an artist, like artist person, why am I not doing a values thing, from that
Yeah.
standpoint? Because that's who I am. And one of the things that was interesting is, so coming at it from that standpoint, I'm not looking at it as there's not a separate values checklist for art and creativity.
Right.
And then versus just being a human being. I don't know why my brain had separated those, because I like to make things harder than they are. I'll just throw that out
Maybe
there.
you have a categorical brain. Some people do
I do in a weird way. Yeah, in some ways, and then other times it's just total spaghetti. It's just wrapped around and sauces thrown every. But so what I found interesting is on this checklist, one of the words, and so I don't mind, sharing mine, the three that I circled, and I gave myself enough time to ponder, but I didn't want to think too hard about it. She recommends that, like, kind of go with your first instincts. And I kind of would put a dot next to one. And I was like, yeah, that hits pretty strong. But then it was like I'd go on and I'm like, yep. And I'd highlight it immediately.
Okay.
So the first one was authenticity.
Oh, does she do that? She's like outlining like a lot of them in the chapters. So she gives you the chart. I haven't gotten the book yet either. So you have the chart, but then is she talking about each
No, she doesn't
value?
really go into them.
Okay, okay.
In fact, I had to look one up. It's spelled Hygge, and I guess it's a Danish word. And if I'm reading the pronunciation right, it's Hygge. I was like Higgy, and I think it's pronounced Huge or Huga. And
Okay.
it's basically like the sense of being in a comforting, like think cozy fire and good ambiance with friends and family. And I was
Oh,
like,
I like
oh, that's
it.
interesting. But I didn't circle that one. I was like, no, that's important to me, but it's not. So why she has you circle the three that hit you the most? She says, your top three values are your motivating values. They inform a present day curiosity that can motivate you into the future. So I remember the first one that I circled, like I remember the order that I did these in, because I kind of read through them. Authenticity hit me first. That is always like, to a fault. A lot of times I was actually just telling my mom about this. She's never seen the Ted Lasso, the series. And of course, you and I adore that series. And I was delighted when she wanted to watch it and that I could watch it with her,
Yeah.
uh, because she enjoys it when I can kind of explain things from like a screenwriting standpoint.
Yeah.
Because she'll pick things out, but she won't know why they're hitting her, because that's good writing. But it's fun when I get to kind of explain something or like how they did something. And um, but I was telling her, I was like, yeah, and I really have a big passion for being in a writer's room. And that's a very specific thing. Like
Yeah.
most people are, and even with me, I've been kind of generic and broad and vague with, I want to be, singer songwriter, I want to be a screenwriter, um, you know, kind of the big topics. But when I really think about it, and it was so interesting, with ever since we started this podcast, I've had moments to be able to chat with my mom, who I've kind of mentioned, like, we haven't always been able to talk about creativity and art. And it's so interesting because with this podcast, we've kind of built a new relationship, and she's finding enjoyment from, what I'm learning, and we're learning how to talk about art together.
Oh,
Hers,
that's
hers is
awesome.
sewing. Yeah. And
Oh, I love that.
she's like, she's been inspired by, and I'm like, oh my God, that's like, that means the world to me. I'm getting like goosebumps
Yes.
from it.
Yes.
But all that to say, I was thinking about Ted Lasso, and let's see, we actually watched the last episode today. I won't give anything away if you
I
haven't seen
haven't
it.
watched it yet. Don't tell.
Yeah,
Don't.
well, I won't give anything away, but it's just the writing is just so excellent. And I had already read this part on curiosity, or at least gotten started in this chapter this morning after my free write, or after my morning pages. So that's, this idea of curiosity, be curious, is bouncing around my head. And I'm in the process of like, what is it that I want to do? Like, I know the things that I enjoy doing from a broad standpoint, but I think I need to jump back and go, okay, get curious. What is it that I'm really drawn to. And I'll go over some of the things which you've kind of already touched on, which is cool that she talks about, ways to think about things. And I was thinking about some exercises that we can challenge, each other with, but also, anybody listening. And it doesn't matter if you're a writer, whatever artist you are. So anyways, but authenticity. So I was talking to her about the TV show, and I told her, I was like, I really genuinely thought when I went to grad school, I thought I was going to come out of there wanting, being a film writer.
Yeah.
And it's not that that won't, be a part of it. I mean, I have written a couple films. I mean, just for
Yeah.
school, and nothing's been picked up yet because I'm still developing that skill, but even after grad school. But I took a TV writing course
Yeah.
in grad school, and it talk about being curious. I was like, I'm drawn to this. Why am I drawn to this?
Yeah. Me
Why am I drawn
too.
to
I like
LA? Why?
that. Yeah.
So I was being curious in grad school, and thankfully, like, because I'm with you on higher education, that's a whole other topic. But I was fortunate enough that I knew I wanted to get through my undergrad so that I could go to grad school for film and TV.
Yeah.
So I knew that for a while. So I'm talking to her about, this TV series, and I'm realizing, I'm like, ooh, okay. So for one thing, I love talking about how TV is written and created, even though I mean, you and I are working on a series,
Yeah.
and I worked on a few things in grad school, for projects or for, different things. I love talking about it though. And I love being in a writer's room. And I was telling my mom, at least how writers' rooms have been for the most part. And I imagine they really are, pretty close to what they were that we were taught about. I love bouncing ideas off other people, which I never realized. I was an individual athlete, right? So I did gymnastics, which is an individual sport, diving, individual sport, track and field with shot put and discus,
Yeah.
individual sport. So
Yeah.
I always thought, well, I'm like, oh, well, I gravitate to those things. Maybe I don't like working as a team. No, couldn't be further from the truth. Like when you're in a room, it's just like with you and me. Like when you're in a
Yeah.
room with other people that love doing what you're doing, whatever it is, whether it's a team or whatever, God, sky's the limit.
You know,
And yeah,
when you're
yeah,
done,
no,
I
jump
just
in,
wanted
jump
to,
in.
well, what's so great about hearing what you're saying is our attorney that we are using, that is lovely, and a longtime friend of mine, Michelle, when her and I met, we talked about exactly what you're saying with our
Yeah.
TV series. And she said, well, what is it? Because we're working on getting our contracts together. Like there is a whole
Mhm.
business side of creativity that I'm really proud of us that we're
Yes.
doing as well.
Yeah, we're not ignoring it.
And so, right. And so we're doing and so part of that was, well, how do you see yourself? What do you see yourself doing once we
Mhm.
start pitching our TV series?
Yep.
And because we need to kind of know that. And Chelsea, you want to be in the writer room.
I really do.
And I think that's what we do. So, but here, and that's the beautiful thing. It's like, that, right? Like, that. So
Mhm.
this is so exciting because I'm like, oh, this is real time action happening here.
I know, right?
And because we're doing our contracts right now. In fact, she did reach out to me this week, and I said, "Yep, I'm going to get back to you, as soon as I can." I did have to like sell. We had to sell a couple houses. The next thing,
Again, pay for
so
life right
pay
now.
for life. But now I'm going to go. We can go forward with our contracts, and we're right at that stage, Chelsea. It's like unfolding all at the right time, and I love that we're doing this in real time on the Creative Download podcast
So fun.
because
Yeah.
so much of our conversation is about being in the creative act. And
Mhm.
so many things go on in the creative act.
Mhm.
What you're describing is really finding
Yep.
your role at what you want to do. And I'm
Yeah.
just using our TV series right now because that's what we're
Yeah.
working
Yeah.
on.
That's what we know. That's what we're working on. That could
That
be
do you want to
anything.
be in the writer's room?
Hmm.
And as we get ready to go forward with like, you've been working on, getting the series kind of outline done and ready to go to get a little feedback. And we're making that for that to unfold. Well, it's no mistake. You're being
Hmm.
led in my
Yeah.
opinion, that oh, that's what you're going to do. I'm way like I want to like oversee and I want to oversee like the creative part of it more,
Hmm.
and I want to do more of the I like after seeing the movie I saw last night, and
Hmm.
like I don't watch TV now and films the same. I listen to a
Yep,
lot of the
same.
music that goes on.
Yep.
And
Same.
so, which is, I know that that's what I'm into. And I
Yeah.
want to be able to be a part of the music, not necessarily writing the songs. Maybe some of the songs we write and you've written, I've written might go in.
Right.
No, but I want the right songs to go in.
Hmm.
Each scene is like as best as it can be,
Yep.
right? And so I
And
think,
that's part of the art itself too. Like the music
yes.
can make or break a scene sometimes, you know.
Well, and I just, we listen to, we get in with Elite Music. We do meet with a lot of different music
Hmm.
supervisors, and as you have done with Mike Myers as well, which is really so interesting to me because they talk about like what they're looking for, and
Hmm.
right now the trend, which I love this trend because you know how much I loved Killing Eve, and they did this, but is that the music almost becomes its own character.
Yep.
The music, it really in a film or a television series should really help to create the characters become who they are, help the scene become what it is. And so like so that's what I'm focusing on. But and she had asked me that question when I met
Right.
her
Yeah, because
before
it's
we met,
important.
all three of us, what do you want to do?
Right.
Where do you see yourself? Because it needs to get outlined in our contract. And so I
Right.
just think that's so beautiful. Like you're just like you're really finding your
Yeah.
space, your unicorn
My
space.
unicorn space, which is so interesting. I love that you call it that because I didn't even think about it like that. And I'm reading, like, we're reading the dang book, you know? Um, I didn't like, I love how specific it is, you know, that I'm like, and that's what's so beautiful because she kind of talks about that and she goes into a lot of different interviews that she has with people. Um, and it makes me there's one story, it's a little bit of a side thing that if I remember we'll go into that, but it reminds me of your friend who's the doctor but also was an opera, you know, opera singer.
Yeah.
She talks about another doctor that, you know, he incorporated his creativity and it's fascinating. So I just my brain goes in a million different directions. But so coming back to TV writing and me knowing that it's like, okay, this seems like totally far-fetched and, you know, out of reach, you know, the negative side of me, the ego side of me, for talking, you know, going back to our talk about self versus the ego side of me is going, God, that's way too specific. Not to mention the fact that you don't live in LA. You're not, you know, a little peon that's working their way up like you're supposed to. You're not an assistant, you know. How are you ever going to be in a writer's room if you don't do these first, you know, these other steps first? Which I don't want to do those things, not because I'm not willing to work hard, but because going back to my values, my authenticity, I just know in my gut that there are specific things that I'm supposed to be writing and very much a lot of things that I am not supposed to be a part of. I'm not one of those people that can go to LA, get on whatever show I can get on, whether that's just as a production assistant and work my way up. Like there are shows that I don't know how to word it other than I am not allowed to go near because of who I am and my
Yeah.
person and my spiritual life and my faith. Like I'm not supposed to go just do whatever I can to make it. So
Correct.
in some regards, people would see that and go, "Wow, that makes that a whole lot harder, you
Yeah.
know, to try and get into that world."
Yeah. Okay. So you're I'm with you on that. And I think we get to, okay, this is where I think the curiosity is so good because Elizabeth Gilbert talks about it too. I'll just read
Yes.
this one line that she says, devotion to inquisitiveness. So when we're in a place that you're in right now, so before we are actually writing a TV series, right? We
Yes.
are actually doing intuitively what we think we should be doing right now.
Mhm.
And so this is real time. We're like getting the contracts together. You're identifying. So like I can see you being in the writer's room on our show.
Right.
However, I don't know what that looks like yet. See, this is
Right.
when people get really like, whoa, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And
Right.
this is like where you have to be like, and I've done this a lot in my life. So I love to do self reflection on it. I'm going to self reflect on walking down the street in San Diego 2 years before I moved here. And my curiosity was, oh my God, how do I move here?
Mm-hmm.
How do I get here? This
Yep.
is where I belong here. How do I
Yep.
get where I belong?
Right.
Not like I was so far away from being here where I am. I've lived here 30 years now. But in that moment in time, I knew this is where I needed to be and wanted to be and I belonged here. I had no idea how to get here. And
Right.
I had to then, so I don't know what it's going to look like. Like I was
Yeah.
just like, as you were talking, I was like, I don't know, what is it going to look like?
Mhm.
Where are we going to live? We're going to have to get a condo, Chelsea. And
Right.
like, you know,
It's so funny
and
that you
so then I'm
bring
like,
that up.
but then I remember, oh yeah, but I've been here before.
Right.
Let's just be
Right.
curious, right? We're going to be curious about what is it going to be like?
Yep.
He's going to be in the writer room. How is that going to look? I don't know, but it's going to happen in some way.
Yep.
And this is what Elizabeth Gilbert says. I believe that curiosity is the secret. This curiosity is the truth and the way of creative living. It is the alpha and the omega, the beginning and the end. Furthermore, curiosity is accessible to everyone. And in this, she's talking a little bit more about it being like between passion and curiosity.
Hmm.
I think there's a lot of what we're talking about doing and being curious and expansive and intuitive, authentic and vulnerable is scary to a lot of people.
Yeah, and to us too. And I think the difference is we're choosing to push through that, and I don't say that to make anybody feel bad. It's like that's the difference though, is it scares all of us, but when you know that you'd be more miserable not doing it and at least trying than you would if you.
Yeah, there's a piece that I'm trying that's like coming to me to put this together, but it's going back to the values.
Hmm.
You step into your values like you are right now. Have acknowledged and you know your values. You don't
Hmm.
want to just be you don't want to be any TV writer in any room. That's
Right.
it. Not
Yep.
willing to do anything for
I
that.
can't.
That's
Yeah.
not really it.
Right.
You want to be there's more to it and it hasn't unfolded it completely yet. And that's what happens. Like
Yep.
that's
Exactly.
what's kind of like makes it's so much easier to go to somebody, and it's great to go talk to somebody who's a writer in a writer's room.
Right.
And what do I do? I want to do this. And if they say to you, if they're jaded, like I've had friends say, well, if you want to be in an actress, because that's when I was acting or trying to act, I wasn't really acting. I've been in one movie, and it's the worst movie ever made. It's like a B cult movie. Um, well, it's on the top 10 of the worst. And you're going to have to go and live in LA and you're going to have to live in your car and you have to pretty much do anything. And I thought, I'm never doing that because
Yep.
that's not who I am.
Yep.
I don't
Me
want to do
either.
that. I want to be able to be authentic to myself. And you know what? That's possible because I think what we're doing right now with our TV series is so intuitive and so authentic. And I feel like everything will just kind of unfold for the next steps to do. And you know that you want to be in the writer's room.
Yep.
So that's where you are going to, that's where your curiosity is going to be. I actually
Yeah.
think that's a good spot to stop too. Do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a great like and we'll pick up right there with our next episode because I'm looking at the time and I'm like, oh my gosh, time flies when we talk about this stuff.
Yes.
So yeah, let's call that good and we're gonna pick it right back up for our next episode.
Yes,
So
we'll talk more about, you're going to hear more about our TV series as we go. So that was kind of letting you know
yes,
where we're at now. And Chelsea's
yes.
going to be in the writer's room. We know that now for
We
sure.
we know that now.
Yeah.
Yes. And yeah, we don't know what that looks like yet. So all right, Christy. Well, I will see you next time and I'm so
Yes.
excited.
Thanks so much, everybody, for listening to the Creative Download, hosted and produced by me, Christy Bruno, and Chelsea Nettleton, and edited by Chelsea. Chelsea, you do a great job. Thank you so much. Take care, everybody.